And what's also wild is that ants realize this is happening, so they will drag an infected ant far away from their colony.
If you need a dose of weirdness today, take a look at these ants.
The industrious little fire ant is working hard to help her colony settle in. She's caring for the kids, keeping the place clean, and her family is growing fast.
From forming bridges out of their bodies to exploding for the sake of the colony, these ants will surprise you, but they aren't just aggressive. Let's dive right in. Number 1. Army ants. These ants are constantly on the move. Most people call them homeless, but I think they are plain ambitious. These ants are savages.
A superorganism with a sensory system of 2 million antennae.
They will eat anything that's slightly moving in front of them. With the urge to kill, these guys can take on prey that is 10 times larger than them. Heck, they will have no shame in stripping the wasps off of their larvae while they stare back helplessly. But to do that, they need to find the shortest distance to the prey. This is why they are often spotted making bridges out of their bodies. The quick formation helps them cross gaps, climb long distances, and even leap to staggering heights. It is an absolute mess. But even in those chaotic times, they will find a way to slide into formation and take the pieces back to their colony. Number 2. Weaver ants. From building bridges to nests out of leaves, the weaver ants are the true builders of the insect world. But this show isn't just for the spectators to enjoy. With over 1,000 insects working together, the idea is to build a safe home for the ants.
Like and subscribe right now, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week.
Now, building the nest is the tricky part, but this bunch makes it look pretty easy. The ants start by finding a good spot for the house. Once that's done, they hold on to the leaves on each side using their mandibles and their legs. Then comes the sticky part, to glue the leaves together. That's where the larvae are dragged in to make their grand entrance.
Larvae from many ant species produce silk to make cocoons for themselves. But weaver ant larvae forego the protection of a cocoon for the security of a safe shelter.
The weaver ants point the heads of the babies towards the leaves, and that's when it all comes together. The larvae release silk and cement the leaves into this giant house for the colony. Going through all this trouble seems wild. This is why when the nest is up and thriving, the ants remain on guard. From using chemicals to thwart the enemies to throwing them off hundreds of feet, these ants would do anything to protect their homes. Number 3. Driver ants. The driver ants do not like to stay put. You'd often spot them migrating from one nest to another. But the real problem comes when it is time to transport the goods. With a colony of nearly millions of ants, migration is not easy. The ants on guard take charge and lead the massive army to help them cross the long distance. Typically, the trip is equal to the length of 2 football fields. The troops are spotted carrying the cargo, while the soldiers stand on either side of the moving trail, protecting the workers. It takes nearly 3 days for the ants to complete the trip. But the hardest part is to move the queen, which is the largest queen in the ant world. Standing at 2 inches long, it takes a crowd to move the queen.
Her enormous bulk has been coaxed along the trail, and now she takes her place at the heart of the nest.
Some of the ants pose as walls to secure the precious cargo. They do not split apart until the queen has been placed in the center of the new nest. Number 4. Fire ant. If there's anything that can survive harsh environments with the utmost surety, it is these fire ants. Raging with the spirit to stay alive, these ants build huge rafts using only their bodies. These living bridges help them stay afloat, while the water carries them from one place to another. But these ants are stubborn, and they will stay in formation for nearly 2 weeks to avoid the peril of death.
The queen ant can give birth to some 3 million ants over her lifetime. If they can reach dry land, they stand a good chance of rebuilding.
The rest of the colony hitches a ride on this floating raft until they have touched down on the shore. 2 weeks is adequate time to find a good spot on land and build another mound. This is probably why these ants are found in millions around the world. Number 5. Black garden ants. The black garden ants have a dark side that you're not ready to see. They do not necessarily form bridges, but that's because they have other insects brainwashed to do their work. These tiny insects are called aphids. They are working to give honeydew to their captors, who are constantly on patrol.
European species were split into 2 groups, Lasius niger, which are found in open areas, and Lasius platithorax, which is found in forested habitats.
The garden ants make sure no aphid turns rebellious by constantly keeping a check on them. They do this by releasing chemicals that keep the aphids under control at all times. The aphids have no choice but to work. The ants do protect them from predators, but that's more of a selfish game than a two-way relationship. Number 6. Leafcutter ants. The leafcutter ants are among the strongest ants in the world. Despite being short in size, they can carry up to 50 times their weight. Look at them carrying those giant slices of leaves. It isn't just to flex their strength. The leafcutter ants take these leaves all the way back to their home to turn them into fungi. Using their poop as compost, the fungi eventually grow and become food for both the adults and the babies. Sometimes there is a need for more workers in the lines. That's when these ants clone into new ants and expand the size of their colony. This whole process is carried out in the absence of the queen to bring in more labor without any delay. Number 7. Grass cutter ants. These are the incredible grass cutter ants, and you won't believe what they do for the ecosystem. These guys go out on a wild hunt to cut long grass into scraps using their sharp teeth.
Each year, a single colony will harvest over half a ton of grass cuttings.
The ants may be small, but they have no trouble carrying those giant pieces of grass back to their colony. This is where the real show begins. Inside these tunnels that run 22 feet deep, there is a special fungus that is not found anywhere else in the world. The ants feed the grass to these fungi that produce edible gardens and CO2 in return. Now, the food is enough to feed a colony of millions, but the CO2 becomes a problem. The grass cutter ants do not let it become an issue though. Do you see those tiny holes in the ant mounds? The CO2 goes out of these tunnels and fresh air seeps through, making it the perfect filter for the ants hiding underground. Pretty clever, isn't it? Number 8. Argentine ants. Argentine ants are absolute menaces. They will invade anything and everything without looking back even once. These ants are neither large nor venomous. They do not have any big weapons or tricks on their sleeves, yet they have managed to invade every other land like a boss.
Argentine ants work together as a unified force, which gives them the upper hand when it comes to defending their territory or launching an attack.
The only secret to their success is their massive number. Unlike other species of the ants, these ants are willing to work with one another. They do not call war on the rival colony. No, they will join hands and then invade the colonies of other smaller ants. And that's how they have become masters at dominating over land. The smaller ants can try all they want, but the overwhelming number of the Argentine ants often leads them to their troubling demise. Number 9. Carpenter ants. Carpenter ants often become victims of the killer fungus, turning into zombies under the fungi's control.
It floods her brain with chemicals, drugging her.
The fungus releases tiny spores that go into the ant's body, twisting its nervous system and leaving it completely in control of the fungus. Then, the sneaky killer leads the ant to a place that is perfect for the fungi. The ant unwillingly goes on this silly rampage and is coerced to do the death bite. This leads the ant to its end, forming the perfect place for the fungus to grow. Within weeks, the fungus released more spores, capturing more ants and turning them into obedient zombies. This is why the carpenter ants are also called the zombie ants. Number 10. Vampire ants. I wasn't long before the scientists found out that the Dracula ants indeed have a taste for blood. When they stumble upon prey, the vampire ants go into a bit of a frenzy. The whole crowd comes out to gobble up the prey. Some stick to eating the carcass, while others start drinking the prey's blood from its wound. They don't stop there. They make sure that their babies develop the same taste. This is why they bring out their larvae, which clamp themselves onto the carcass, feeding on the blood. This disturbing act goes on until the prey is all suckled out. Number 11. Crazy ants. As their name suggests, these ants have their fair share of crazy to show to the world. But it isn't just their walking style that's erratic. They are hiding a secret power that makes them dominate over the fire ants too. These tiny ants have a secret gland inside their bodies that releases a self-healing fluid. When the fire ants attack them with their poisonous stingers, the crazy ants only need a minute to recover from the venom. They go to the side and take the help of the magical fluid to detoxify the venom. All they have to do is to reach to the abdomen, take the magical fluid from the gland, and rub it all over their body. With this simple hack, they render the venom of the powerful fire ants useless. Number 12. Dinosaur ants. These ants are called the dinosaur ants, and they are a living fossil of the insect world. They have been around for millions of years and have no plans of leaving anytime soon.
Dinosaur ants are really huge ants. They're some of the biggest ants in the world. They're somewhere between an inch to an inch and a half in size.
The dinosaur ants have a very primitive method of hunting, but they are well suited to their old habits. Each night, a group of ants will go out and individually hunt for prey. If they find a good meal, they bring it back to the colony. Otherwise, they stay put and look for the prey all throughout the night. But that's not all. These ants are also blind, so they have to rely on chemicals and vibrations to help them get close to their prey. Once they do, Their sharp mandibles handle the rest for them. At dawn, all the ants make the trip back home and feast on what they have. Number 13, desert ants. The silver ants are the fastest ants in the world, but it is more of a survival instinct than a superpower. These ants work with an hourglass tied to their heads. They have to move out of their nest, hunt for food, and then bring the pieces back to the mound, all in under 10 minutes. Otherwise, they will die from the extreme heat of the sun, just like their prey. The troops go out and take the help of the sun to navigate the shortest distance to and from home.
To carry it home, they need to pull it apart, and quickly, or this meal might be their last. The scorpion is over 100 times heavier than any one of them.
It doesn't take long before they find an animal nearby. They pull up to the corpse that's nearly 100 times heavier than a single ant. Then they rip apart the scorpion and hastily cross the long distance to race back home. For now, they can enjoy their meal. That's only until they have to race against time and do this all over again. Number 14, southern broad-nosed spiny ant. Spiny ants are pretty dramatic, but their flimsy performances end up saving their lives. When the enemy troops come marching, they have the oldest trick in the book to fool them, feigning their deaths. The ants fall down and lie in the dirt motionlessly to trick the enemy into thinking they have died.
We've got quite a few workers in here, although it's quite a large nest for them, so they've still got plenty of room to...
It is unclear what triggers the ants into playing dead, or how long they can stay like that. That is yet to be studied, but this marvelous trick helps them survive another day in the wild. Number 15, big-headed ants. Big-headed ants stay true to their name with these giant heads and one of the sharpest jaws. But that's not true for all ants in this colony. This status is only reserved for the ones on guard to protect the workers. The rest of the ants are foragers whose duty is to get food and protect the queen. Before you ask, the ants do not get to pick side. They are born that way.
The intent is not to kill, but the army ants must get past these majors in order to get into the tunnel. Big-headed ants act quickly. They work together to pin down the attackers.
This is why the soldiers go out with their huge mandibles to lure the prey into the colony and kill the predators. Almost all of them are born true leaders, keeping a watch from a good vantage point while the army engages in combat. If they end up losing, the mission is to evacuate while the soldiers sacrifice their lives on the front line. Number 16, paramedic ants. These ants have a superpower that you won't be able to guess. During a battle, some of the ants end up getting injured. Unlike other colonies, these ants are super involved in nursing the wounded back to health. But there's a twist. The injured ants decide themselves if they want to be saved. Once they are injured, they will crawl back to the nursing staff to be treated. If they think they are worth saving, they will allow the nurses to tend to their wound. But if it thinks it is in mortal danger, it will flail its legs, preventing the staff from catering to its injury. Only the ants with minor wounds are rescued. Number 17, honeypot ants. These tiny ants hanging in the dark have giant bellies filled with honey. What happens is that the large ants take on the role of being repletes. On the other hand, the smaller ants become workers. The workers go out and hunt for the nectar and feed it to their sisters. The belly of the honeypot ant swells up and becomes a transparent ball of honey. Whenever food is scarce,
These golden globes hanging from the roof are their storage pots, full of honey. Each one is alive, an ant with an abdomen expanded to the size of a grape.
the workers come back to take a sip from the repletes. But these nectar-filled bellies do not just fill up the hunger of ants. It also fills up the stomachs of many locals who have developed the taste of this nectar. There are still a few tribes that like to sip this nectar from the ants' bellies. The fascinating thing is that they remain alive even after giving the honey to humans. Number 18, field ants. Ants have a funny way of marking their territory. Some send out troops to guard their nests, while others just go about it silently like these field ants. These tiny black ants like to live underground with tunnels and tunnels growing far and wide.
And it does mean the ants and the aphids barely ever have to leave the nest, which is why I didn't find any when I was looking.
But when they are done excavating the tunnels, they like to leave a proper signature on their artwork. To do this, they build mounds over their tunnels to give a loud call about who's living down under. Although a lot of ant species are known for building mounds, not one comes close to the mound that these ants build. Number 19, harvester ants. Harvester ants are probably one of the most unbothered ants out there. While the other ants are busy fighting for territories and food, these guys are on the other end of the spectrum. They go out every other day to find seeds, unaware of what terror the other ants are raining over the land. They bring the tiny seedlings back to their colony and eat them quietly. Some of the seeds are opened right there and then. Others are kept as storage. Using their sharp mandibles, the ants crack the seed open. Then they munch on it for a while before discarding it. Most of the seeds they leave out can still germinate. This way, their quick runs for seeds helps the population of plants grow. Number 20. Jumping ants. Some of the ant species need to build bridges to traverse the gaps, but not these ants. No, these jumping ants can simply leap forward and cover the long distance.
And the winners get quite a prize. They put their worker ant days behind them, and they get to reproduce.
Using only their legs, they perform this incredible leap that helps them get to their nests much faster. They also have a remarkable visual navigation that allows them to pick the shortest distance home. Number 21. Trapjaw ants. I do not need to tell you why these ants are famous. Their jaws are proof enough. The trapjaw ants aren't a big threat when that mouth is closed. It is when they stretch open wide that the drama begins. Within milliseconds, the trapjaw ants can pounce at the prey and put it down by injecting its venom. Don't mistake these jaws as weapons, though. They are more like a pair of grippers. Once the predator has a tight hold of the prey, it has no room for escape. Number 22. Acrobat ants. These tiny ants are called the acrobats of the ant world. When the enemy comes close, the acrobat ants move their pointed abdomens over their thorax and head. It looks as if they are doing a handstand, earning them this good name. But this isn't a show to attract an audience. By raising their abdomen,
it was like late at night and I was just about to go onto my flight to Europe.
Their stinger is exposed. The problem is that it isn't that powerful, so you'd rarely see them using it. To cover up for that embarrassment, they simply perform a few tricks and point the stinger in the predator's way. Somehow, that empty threat works out and manages to scare away the predator. Number 23. Redwood ants. Anybody who has faced the wrath of the redwood ants would dare not mess with it again. That's if they get a second chance. Using the formic acid as a mighty weapon, they can rage a war and end it within minutes. Heck, they can kill grasshoppers that are 4 times their size using only the chemicals in their stinger. It isn't like the other ant species are not ferocious or...
So one of the interesting things that people notice about the ants is their very strong smell, which is a very acidic smell, particularly when you disturb.
Do not spray chemicals. But the redwood ants are the masters of this art. The way they furiously spray the acid, it is as if they are flexing the power of their stingers. Despite the tiny battle running under a microscope, you can smell the aftermath of the war from high up. Number 24. Brazilian ants. These are the massive Brazilian ants. But other than their huge size, they also have a big heart. That's because these ants would much rather die than let their rivals storm their nest. The Brazilian ants were recently discovered to be both rare and fatal. When the enemies get too near the colony, the ants stretch their muscles and burst into a terrifying explosion. This distraction puts a halt to the marching steps of the enemies and protects the workers, all in one go. You won't hear or see the explosion, but you can definitely see its terrifying aftermath in the battlefield. Far from the nest, all that's left after the explosion are the corpses covered in a nasty yellow goo. Number 25. Turtle ants. The turtle ants are also known as the doorknob ants. These special species of ants have a flattened head. Like a door shut and close, these ants can put a lock on the entrance of their nests. They slide inside,
especially looking like it has a hardened shell on the top. This armored appearance, as well as the kind of goofy looking face, really does make it look like a tiny little turtle. These ants mainly nest in mangrove twigs
and use their flat heads to block the entrance. Since their heads are large, black, and rough, it almost looks as if they are a part of the tree. It is the perfect way to fool the predators and protect their colony from enemy. Number 26. Australian bull ants. Meet the Australian bull ants that are one of the largest and the most dangerous ants on the planet. There isn't anything these ants can't do. They can jump, they have a powerful stinger, and they can become pretty aggressive if they are cornered. What's scary is that its painful bite has taken the lives of many. Heck, even humans aren't safe from its ferocious nature. But their list of world records does not end here. These ants are known to host big colonies in their giant mounds. One mound was so massive that it had to be put into a museum.
Bull ants earned their name because of their aggression and determination during an attack. However,
before you ask, it was an empty mound. The queen had died, which later resulted in the colony dying out. So, The scientists went on a mission to cast a mold out of the empty nest. They used molten aluminium for the casting and then dug it out from under the soil. The complex mound stretched far and wide, looking like an iceberg on land. Number 27, the bullet ants. The bullet ants are known to carry the most ferocious stings on the planet. The good news is that they are not as aggressive as people exaggerate, but the bad news is that they do pack a powerful sting. The pain is so horrifying that it will have you wailing for hours. To make it worse, it is a slow burn that comes after you've been stung for a while. The pain is known to last for at least 24 hours, which can be unbearable to many, but for others, it is a way to prove their bravery. That's why in some tribes, people dive right in to battle it out with the bullet ants. This test is to see who will be crowned the new leader of the tribe. Well, that's one way. Number 28, Pharaoh ants. This is the Pharaoh ant that was first spotted in Egypt. However, the way they have spread, they have taken global domination to the next level. The problem with these ants is that they do not just grow. Instead, they bring tens of diseases along that becomes a nuisance for humans. That's why they have even earned the title of being a pest. That too, in hospitals. Pulling the worst trick out of a villain's book.
Effective management requires a comprehensive approach that focuses on eliminating food sources.
They sure do know how to hide in plain sight. Unlike many ant species, these ants do not even leave a foraging trail behind. Instead, they rely on pheromones to help them get to the food. Plus, their reproductive game is pretty strong. They have multiple queens that help their colony grow faster than the other ant colony. With big numbers in their hands, they do not just come to raid the other areas. They march to invade and dominate. Number 29, ghost ants. Having a translucent body and a spooky walking style, these ants aren't that easy to spot. This is why many people call them the ghost ants. Whether that convinced you or not, nature definitely had a few ghastly tricks set apart for these ants. Take their walking style as an example. They are known to move a bit erratically at fast speed. This makes it harder to spot them even when they are on the move. It is almost like chasing a chicken, but the chances of catching them are almost zero. So you can imagine why these ants have a special name. Number 30, ant-eating spider. This ant that you see right here isn't actually an ant. No, it is a spider that has disguised itself in the form of a weaver ant. But like you, the ants are fooled by this sly trick too. If you look closely, you can spot the spider living inside the dress of an ant. But this liberty is not available to the weaver ants who think it is one of its own. Using its sword-like jaws, the spider lures the ant into a trap where escape is not an option. This incredible mimicry earns it many free meals in the form of weaver ants that it gobbles up without wasting a single second. That's all, folks. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and hit subscribe. Which of these ant species have you seen before? Are there any that you would like to see up close? Let us know in the comments below. Stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.